What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Hollywood, California. Now, just behind me is the world famous Chateau Marmont. There is a lot of Hollywood history, a lot of lore, a lot of legends. But one thing that cannot be made up is the fact that this is the last place that John Belushi stayed. He was staying here at the Chateau Marmont. He was staying in Bungalow 3, and he passed away here. Now, there was a lot of media attention on this. It was a huge thing because John Belushi he was one of the few people that had a #1 album with the Blues Brothers. He had a #1 movie, The Blues Brothers, and a #1 TV show, Saturday Night Live. Now, he was one of the funniest people. He was trying to get his acting abilities to be known, and sadly, it all happened and ended right here up this sidewalk. So I'll show you what I can. I'll tell you a little bit about the story of what happened, or is what is known to have happened. And yeah, we'll go from there. I'll show you what I can. Let's go up the sidewalk. We would be missing another part of the Chateau Marmont history if I didn't mention this right here. Now, back in 2004, there was a famous photographer that was staying here by the name of Helmut Newton. And he suffered a massive heart attack when he was driving down Marmont Lane and crashed his car here, and he was transferred to Cedars-Sinai across town, where he passed away. Now we're heading around back of the Chateau Marmont, which is where the bungalows were, and that is where John Belushi was staying in late February, early March of 1982. Now, he came to Los Angeles because he was going to meet up with his manager, Bernie Brillstein, and some executives about doing a movie that he really didn't want to do. Now, John Belushi at that time was not the John Belushi of the Blues Brothers. His career was kind of stalling a little bit. He wanted to do something a little bit different in his career, but he was staying right here in Bungalow number 3. They are doing some work back here, so there's nobody staying in here right now. So we'll see if we can get a little look in here. But this was the last location that John Belushi was staying at, and this is where he passed away also. But for just a little bit more on the story, John Belushi was hanging out with a woman by the name of Kathy Smith, and she was a former backup singer and kind of a junkie, and she was a drug dealer, and she was supplying a lot of different rock stars and different people with drugs, and she was hanging out with John Belushi the night before he passed away. They went to a place called On the Rocks, which was a private club above the Roxy on Sunset Strip, and that's a place where a lot of famous people went to kind of not be bothered. They could do whatever they want, illegal or not, which is what a lot of these guys would do. And then he wasn't feeling very good, so he asked Kathy to bring him back to the bungalow here, and this is where they would have parked the car. It's safe to say that John Belushi wasn't really up to anything good while he was here. He was an addict. He had a lot of addiction issues with drugs and things like that. But he came up here and he got a hold of Dan Aykroyd, his close friend, Blues Brothers co-star. But beyond that, Dan Aykroyd was a friend. And John Belushi really was not excited about doing any of the projects that were presented to him. And Dan Aykroyd basically told him, take a break, come home. Dan Aykroyd was actually writing Ghostbusters at the time, and he was writing a part in it for John Belushi, who was originally supposed to be in the Ghostbusters movie. But that sadly didn't happen. Dan Aykroyd knew that he was having a hard time, and he was actually going to fly out to Los Angeles to meet with John Belushi and try to kind of talk him off the ledge and bring him home safely. Now, it's also been said that Robert De Niro and Robin Williams both stopped by to visit John Belushi that night, but neither one of them liked the sight that they saw, and neither one of them really wanted to be around it. So both of them left, and that is the legend. Whether or not it's true, nobody 100% knows, but it's said that both of them paid him a visit. There's kind of an interesting sticker up at the top of this sign. And Lamont at Large was here. He's got a cool channel too. Now, looking back here, you wouldn't think that these bungalows were thousands of dollars a night, but the Chateau Marmont is a legendary place in Hollywood where a lot of stars come to visit, and there's been a lot of history here too. Now, that night, after John Belushi got back here, Kathy Smith came in and they hung out a little bit more. They did a few more drugs. John actually got sick in the bathroom, and then she provided him with more drugs, and basically she thought that he had fallen asleep and he was zonked out, and Kathy Smith ended up leaving. Now, the next morning when John Belushi's assistant Bill Wallace showed up, he found John unresponsive and called at first I believe he called the manager Bernie Brillstein and explained to him what was going on, said we have a big problem here. And Bernie Brillstein called the medics, and they came out here, and John was pronounced dead in the bungalow here. Now, the saddest part about this is the day before and in the previous couple of days, he had met with his manager, Bernie Brillstein, and he asked him for some money to buy a guitar, and that ended up being the money that he used to buy the drugs that would basically take his life. But a very sad thing that happened here, and John Belushi, just what a legend. I mean, Saturday Night Live, he created some great characters. The Blues Brothers, Animal House. He was a very, very funny guy. But what a lot of people never got to see out of him was he was actually a very talented actor that never got to show or, live up to his full potential. But this is where it all happened, right in here. If these walls could talk, and just thinking of the names of people that have stayed in these bungalows over time, I mean, this is on property. They will not let you film or anything like that. But back here, we're on kind of we're on a public road and all that kind of stuff. And like I said, they are working on there's construction people out here today, so these units or bungalows are not being used right now, or at least today. But they did tell me that I could take a couple quick shots, but then again, I don't think the guys that told me that are employees here. I think they're just contractors. But there were pictures taken from that day where you could see the coroner wheeling Belushi's body out from that bungalow door. And those stairs I just showed you on the right-hand side, those are very obvious in the background of those photos. But this was where John Belushi met his fate. Now, hopefully you enjoyed this video and learned a little something about John Belushi. And I love bringing you these videos from Hollywood, showing you a little bit of Hollywood history. But there's going to be a lot more coming up. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll catch you on the next video. So from Hollywood, we'll catch you on the next video. Take care, everybody.